Frosted Glass.
Woo! Welcome to Death Curse Society, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I'm Red Crank. I got the Colonel and Zigzag.
That's right.
Why am I wishing these people a wonderful day? We haven't even gotten started. It's going to be a rough day in the world of horror, it seems like.
I'm just saying, we may have to reevaluate the booking process on this show after this week's fiasco. More on that later. Here we go.
I had a face-splitting good time.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and Twitch. Yes, I almost forgot. I'm hungover. And before we move any further, did you hear that? Did you see that?
What was that?
Oh my God. It's the newest Netflix movie. Let's go camping.
You're going to Camp Blood, ain't you? You'll never come back again. It's got a death curse.
First up on Let's Go Camping, we got a chance to check out the latest horror film from Netflix. Yeah, light horror, light horror on Netflix. Things Heard and Seen, starring Amanda Seyfried, F. Murray Abraham, James Norton, Natalia Dyer from Stranger Things fame, and Nancy Allen and more. Written and directed by Sherry Springer Berman and Robert Polcini. Let's get into it. Colonel, initial thoughts on Things Heard and Seen.
Just watching the trailer, I knew I was not in for a good time. This is not my interest in horror, and it's using the term very light. Crank kind of set it up. Horror light. If this movie was an alcohol brand, it'd be White Claw. Okay, this is the White Claw of horror.
Ooh.
There was no horror. Greatly acted, especially George, who's played by James Norton, played a fabulous fucking asshole. Pretty much had everything handed to him. I don't want to say too much yet, but man, when your dick character is my favorite character, because I really want to see something bad happen to him, you're not doing the job for me.
I never, upon watching that trailer, thought I would not entirely disagree with the Colonel, but I do think there are plenty of horror elements in this story. He's right. This guy plays asshole to the supreme. You know, everything handed to him to a point, and then stops being handed to him, and then you see what a man does when that happens.
To
How good is it? It's not bad. I do have some issues with this film, though, we can get into, but overall, for a 2-hour fucking movie that's a slow burn right up Crank's ass alley, I actually enjoyed this film quite a bit, to a point, and we'll get into that later.
Who? Me? Yes. This is right up my alley. I love the slow burns. You guys know this. Let me start with this assessment. There's a lot of fucking layers in this movie. You don't really have to dig through them all to appreciate it, but once you do, it helps. There is some further investigation that is required to really appreciate this film, I think. Is that the proper way to make a movie? No, I don't think so. I do agree with some aspects of what both of you are trying to say, slightly. I did enjoy this because it is more of a character piece, and it's a very deliberate version of good versus evil. That's kind of my take on it, my very, very vanilla initial take to it. Here's where we dive in. Were the artistic and theological aspects of the film too heavy-handed for general moviegoers?
Maybe for some, maybe for the most simple, but it's pretty laid out for a slow burn like this. And yeah, you're saying you went and probably looked up a bunch of facts and about it. You don't need that, in my opinion. You can get the gist of this film just by watching it. Even if it's not exactly right on historical fact or whatever, I mean, it's still, you'll get it up till the ending. I don't even know what you want to do here. You want to call it like paranormal. It's almost like Amityville, a little bit Blair Witch. Totally rips off a big ending. Me and Colonel agree on this. We'll talk about it when we get to it. It's almost like Amityville horror, but you get to see what happened, beyond that night. Not the new couple moving in. It continues. You're right. Character driven is the fucking word here. This George Clare, I would like to punch him in the face. I mean, legitimately, he's that good of a portrayal of this and what he does, that is the horror of this. That is what is fucking scary to me. That somebody would do some of the things he does. That's where this works in the horror realm for me.
I think most people would like to punch him in the face. But Colonel, would you?
Definitely. But
that's not your real question, but
yeah, I don't know. It's just like, dude, I appreciate you giving me some interest in this movie because your wife just isn't doing it for me. But I gotta kick your ass, man. You fucking deserve this.
Let's just find him out back somewhere and beat the shit out of him. All right.
He needs it.
Colonel, artistic and theological aspects too much, or were they explained well?
Well, for one, you guys know I don't like this fucking art house, artsy crafty bullshit with Nancy Drew mixed in with it. That being said, no, I don't think it was too heavy. I was perfectly able to follow along the story and everything that was going on and putting the pieces together. They did it just right.
Okay.
For someone like me who was not going to pull crank and dig deep into this fucking story.
It plays like a soap opera a lot. You know, it's very heavy-handed on the twist that turn within the relationship. That's where I kind of think I was like, okay, you know, I think I saw this on Knots Landing 20 years ago, stuff like that, you know. But I mean, it works. It does work here.
Saying it worked. I'm kind of Zach. I think the soap opera aspect of it might turn people off because they did a great job setting it up. Not even say the slow build. Man, that was a great build-up. They did a really good job with that. Granted, I could have done without the Nancy Drew bullshit, but that's every fucking paranormal movie.
What did I say to you? I go, I'm 1 hour in. I'm loving the setup. Hope this thing pays off.
Right, I hope this thing pays off. And then an hour and a half later, you were like, they were that close.
Missed it by that much.
Missed it by that much.
I have a little bit to add on this.
Really? Big
Yeah,
surprise.
really. To begin with, this is a very artsy film, and that's going to drive a few people up the wall. There is no denying that. And it subtly tries to explain that in the very beginning when a painting transitions into reality. The film even ends in the reverse style of that, where reality transitions into a painting. It's kind of like bookends to the film, signifying a deeper understanding required to appreciate this film. Now, before I go into the deeper meanings, I should explain, I had to do some research. I didn't just pick this up off the top of my head. I knew there were multiple layers to this, and I wanted to unravel those. This is not something a lot of casual viewers are going to do, especially horror viewers. But I was intrigued, and I wanted to know more. There are a lot of direct connections to the art world, including Catherine's passion as a painter, which she essentially abandoned for the sake of George's education and career. George is an art history professor who supposedly had a promising talent for painting himself, something we find to be one of his early falsehoods in life. And the head of George's department gives him a book written by philosopher, theologian Emanuel Swedenborg. Now, this is the most important idea of the film, in my opinion. Swedenborg believed he had been visited by Jesus Christ himself and told a New Testament of the Bible, which he wrote down, known as the Heavenly Doctrine. He promoted this to many followers in the mid-1700s, and this led to the formation of the New Church in 1787. The simple belief of his teachings was that death was not the end, and that there are connections between the real world and the afterlife. The movie even begins with a quote of his, "Things that are in heaven are more real than things that are in the world." The painting that is featured prominently throughout the movie, The Valley of the Shadow of Death, is by George Inness, and that also plays a large part in the story. It perceives the rise of a spirit into the afterlife and features a glowing cross in the sky. This plays into the cryptic ending of the film later, and the correlations between the film and Swedenborg's teaching and the art from the time are mentioned frequently. A lot of that is kind of explained in the film, but it's very peppered in and not really pushed. I found the fact that the Swedenborg guy thought that he talked to Jesus, and then there's one scene kind of early in the film where George is walking down the hallway of the university he's just gotten the job at, and he's talking with the head of the department, played expertly by F. Murray Abraham, by the way. I haven't seen that guy in a movie in a while. I miss that guy. And they're having this conversation, and he's talking about George Inness, the painter, and Swedenborg. And he says, I can't believe this guy just fell for, his mystic bullshit. Basically, that's a big part of the movie right there. It's a small line. It's kind of a throwaway, or it's treated like that. But you can almost take that entire the rest of the movie back to that single line, because can't believe this guy fell for all that shit. And what's going on is all that shit.
He even nicely tells him, though. He says, well, you'll find that most people around here tend to agree with what he said. And
Well,
so, I mean,
he says you're in Swedenborg country now. So welcome.
Right. It's almost like a unintended warning.
Colonel, you kind of mentioned it. Was there enough horror in the film?
Not really, and not enough to where I would want to call it a horror film. I mean, yeah, you had your paranormal aspects, doors shutting, night lights glowing, you had a little bit of blood, you had some murder. Man, if anything, I'd probably call it a little more of a thriller than a horror. And I know they fall in the same category overall, but as a straight up horror film, this movie is not, in my opinion.
When you watched the trailer for this, did you get the overall feel of how this was going to go? Were you ready for a slow burn movie like what we got?
Oh, definitely. This trailer set this movie up perfect without giving you fucking anything. Mm-hmm. Just based on the fact I'm like, here we go. A24. Let's get this going. Which, oddly enough, we've seen so many, I'm starting to appreciate these a lot more.
I thought the exact same thing. I was like, here we go again. Crank's done woven another one of his slow burning fucking movies and shit. But this one makes it different. It stands apart from that. It has purpose. It fills in as you're going along, and you keep finding out just this fucking guy's been running this game for a while, and it's fucking pretty cool. Horror wise, that is what it is. I mean, for me, that's what it was. Like the darkness of this man's persona. It's almost like he's trying to be good, but he's a fucking cunt. He's horrible, man. The actual little bit of visual horror we get, yeah, you got some ghosts popping in here and there. Lots of flickering lights, shadows, and stuff like that running around. It's cool. You got a scared little girl that plays into it. It's definitely off-putting at times, like scary-wise. You know, you're not going to want to watch this in the dark by yourself, I would think, in some of those scenes. That's exactly what paranormal people are looking for. They nail it. It looks good. It's great. You know how me and Colonel roll. We like the hardcore stuff. We like fucking in your face. We like splatter, man. And there's not a lot of it here. It's got some blood flying around, but in the end, the horror here is the actual characters or character.
This movie is what The Walking Dead is to horror. So we all know what The Walking Dead has turned into is now a drama. The walkers, the zombies are kind of like just there to help push the story along. So it's here, it's like, okay, this is more about the people than it is about the ghost.
I'm with you on that sentiment, you know, where it's about the people over the ghost, for sure. That's good. That works. And unlike those Mike Flanagan things Crank's all over and into, I mean, this one actually, it's not boring. It pays off. It keeps going. You're interested. You want to see every time a new lie is turned over. If it's going to drag and really slow fucking burn, you're going to tune out. That's when you pick up the phone and start flicking and stuff. The story is cool. I can't deny it. I did enjoy this movie.
Hold on. Ziggy, you dropped something. Fuck you! So as they've mentioned, where is the horror in this film? I'll be the first to admit, classic horror elements are minimal, but I think the usage of them when they are is very effective for the overall story. The story is more of a personal drama with horror elements than a straightforward horror film. There are flashes of horror within the first 20 minutes of the film when Catherine sees a ghost in the kitchen after finding the old ring. Again, that ring plays a large role in the ending if you catch it at all. Furthermore, there are ghosts and strange occurrences throughout, but what makes this a different kind of film is that the ghosts are there to help Catherine rather than harm her. As we discover, it's a cycle of behavior that has been repeating for centuries. And I thought that was a nice little switch and touch in the story as well.
That was cool, but I did have some problems with that when the ghost was speaking. I had to rewind it a few times to hear what the fuck it was saying.
Unless you have like good surround sound.
Yeah, I didn't have buds in. I was on the big TV upstairs, man.
And you're not going to get that out of just one speaker coming out of your TV. You're not going to get that. You have to have good surround sound for that. Many viewers are going to primarily focus on the fractured relationship between Catherine and George, which is portrayed excellently throughout. And I think that's the primary horror in the film, emotionally anyway. Maybe not viscerally, but internally, that's the main horror in the film, is their relationship. Their marriage is in a very bad place. Catherine feels like she's making sacrifice after sacrifice for George's benefit without receiving anything in return, which is true. George is, like you guys have already said, he's just a dick. Here I'm going to give away a few things. Not only does he cheat on his wife with the lovely Natalia Dyer from Stranger Things, but he's emotionally abusive, deceitful about the history of the house by not telling his wife about the tragedies that have occurred in the past. He forges a recommendation letter to get his new job, and then the ending, which I don't necessarily want to get into yet. Catherine at one point kind of deals with a purging thing. Like, she doesn't eat a lot. She's always in the bathroom after she does eat, and she drinks protein shakes. We find out later that maybe because George, being the dick that he is kind of pushing that on her. There's one line where they're coming back from a party and he says something about, well, she can certainly put away that lasagna. And she looks at him like, well, that's kind of an asshole thing to say. But I took that as he said that a lot to Catherine, and that's why she's trying to maintain that girlish figure, if you will, a symbol of perfection for him. Do you agree or not, Ziggy? And you kind of already touched on it, that the true horror of this film was the relationship between George and Catherine.
100%. The majority of it is right there. Every time, all these things you mentioned, just innocently bump into the wrong person, and they're like, "Hey, how did you get this letter of recommendation?" Because he actually runs into the guy he forged about,
right?
And it's like, oh, he gets caught on the house lies. Like, just they're having a party, and the realtor that rented them the house, oh, he didn't tell you. Once again, she's forced to find out some details from somebody else, and it's just another tumbling of the dominoes of the lies, and you're figuring out that these lies have been going for years and everything involved with it. So, I mean, definitely, this guy is a piece of shit.
Colonel, agree?
I agree 100%. Luckily for me, these assholes covered everything but one thing, so I got one thing to add. We come to find out this guy was an aspiring young artist who just gave it up. I don't want to do it anymore. That's because his beautiful artwork he stole from his dead gay cousin after he died and claimed they were his. What
Probably
a piece
killed
of
him.
shit.
Probably fucking killed him. But that's the thing. They ask him about his artwork, and he goes, "Oh, no. Catherine, she's the artist of this family. Come over. Yeah, look at her stuff. Look at this." Always deflecting and never wants to talk about his stuff and the stuff he did, even though his dead cousin's work is prominently displayed in his office.
In his office.
Yes. Away. But then here's the mother-in-law talking about, oh, it was a shame that he died. And there were some art things we wanted to do, have a display on. We wanted to have an open house. And you realize they're talking about all these paintings that are hanging in dude's office. And it's like, ooh, man.
And even when Catherine, they're moving in and she's putting, artwork on the wall, she's like, "Hey, where are those landscapes that you've got?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, they're in my office. I'm going to take them to my office." Yeah. He doesn't want them in the house where it gets talked about around her, but when it gets talked about around a bunch of strangers that he's just meeting, students, faculty, staff at the university, that's fine. Oh, it's this motherfucker is digging deep for the deceit, baby. I mean, he's just, how far can I go? It's crazy.
He just keeps throwing new lies on top of old shit.
He has to.
Fuck, man.
And it's typical, the bigger the web, the harder it is to remember all the details, and he starts to slip. And then, like I said, just for no reason at all, he runs into the wrong fucking people that just smash his whole fucking cover. And it is cool, man.
Essentially, and this is pretty obvious especially once you get to the end of the movie, the characters of Catherine and George represent good and evil. And this is to parallel the beliefs and the teachings of Swedenborg and the art of Innes. The relationship is more than just the differences of a true believer and a cynic. It's light and dark, which leads me to one question that wasn't really answered in the film. Was it the dark history of the house that drew George to want to be there in the first place without him even knowing, Colonel?
Yeah, it has to be, because like I said, he's so secretive about the history to it. Granted, yes, they don't explain it, but my gut feeling is yes, it kind of spoke to him, it reached out.
There's credibility to that because when they have a seance, they say there's another spirit already here. And the other one couldn't break through until the other one finished its purpose, is what they said. So that's why I think, yeah, there's something there that attracted them to it. And just based on what happened when they built the house, you know, and how they tied it all to it, it's the same repeating of history. Absolutely. I do think there's a lot of credibility to the statement that the house did draw them there to close a loop or finish a chapter in whatever the realm of the world is, however time ticks away, because the ending is a little goofy.
We're about to get into that. But
Yes.
I agree with you guys. I think the house drew George in because, like you just mentioned, there is that scene where they're like, there is another spirit here, but it's not really saying much or giving me much. In the end, when the voices come to George, there's more than just his voice in his head. There's who I assume to be maybe Jacob Smith, the original builder of the house, the original owner of the house, who killed his wife way back in late 1700s. Let's get into the ending. I don't really have a good way to ask this question, so Ziggy, let's discuss your interpretations of the ending. And there will be spoilers.
So George, he's doing the exact same thing that happened in the 1800s. He's drugged his daughter, he's drugged his wife, and you are led to believe he's probably going to start the car up in the garage and gas the lot of them and all die. Doesn't quite go that way. So he has a colleague at the college, Justine, she's noticing all his inconsistencies too along the way, and she starts doing some digging herself, and she discovers what he's up to and what he's been doing. He can't let her live. Basically, the guy that hired him was going to turn him in, so he went out on the boat and he killed him. Justine sees him all soaked in water, obviously, because he had to jump off the boat and swim back to shore because they were out in the water. And she's like, oh, where you been, George? You been swimming? And then she's just pretty much saying, I'm going to turn you in. You're done. He runs her off the road at a high rate of speed, and she's in a coma, may never wake up. And then as we get to the ending, George actually kills Catherine with an axe while she's drugged out.
I thought that was pretty brutal.
That was nasty. It was, further darkness for this asshole.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much scot-free. He's been now promoted to the job of the man he killed. He's been added to the board of directors at the school. It's all working out for him. And we have these two boys kind of doing odd jobs around the house for them, fixing things. We find out their mother was also killed tragically in this same house. Her name was Ella, the mother. And that's where this ring comes in. And these two spirits, Catherine and Ella, start working together to fix this. And they summon Justine back to life. I don't know, they wake her out of her coma. George finds out, he gets a cryptic text saying, I remember everything, and everybody else will too. He realizes he's fucked, gets out to the boat he inherited from his dead gay cousin. And even though there's a harbor master going, you cannot go out. You can't go out. He pays him off a couple of $100 to turn his back and let him go. So he sails off into the water. You can hear the voices of Catherine and Ella. He's clearly, I think he's heading for it ain't a getaway. He ain't coming back. But then all of a sudden it pans out in an act from Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. It becomes the picture that we've seen out this entire movie with the cross in the sky, the one Crank has been telling us all about with its history. And you can kind of see the boat being taken down from the depths, kind of dematerializing. Again, it doesn't really explain exactly what the hell happened, but it just seems everything was made right in the universe based on these spirits all uniting. It had to happen this way for it to be closed.
I'm pretty sure it did explain exactly what the hell happened in that short scene. That's just me. Colonel, your interpretation.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Hearing Zag talk about it does not help me at all. It reminds me of how much I did not like this ending. This is where it got too fucking art house for me. Yes, he's out in the ocean. He's on this fucking sailboat in a fucking storm. Rough waters. It fades into the painting. Fulci did it, and he did it so much better. It just, man, like it was just too fucking art house for me at this point. I wasn't super lost until they got to this fucking point, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck's going on? So yeah, he goes into the painting, and you go through, you're hearing these voices, and it shows the original owners of the house, and the wife's wearing the same ring Catherine had on, that Ella had on. So it's like, okay, so this ring is pretty much like an omen of death. You get this ring, you're done. You're dead.
Yes and no. I think it's kind of an omen of protection, too. I think it allows the other spirits of the house to kind of keep watch over. Now, they're not very good at keeping watch.
They fucking suck at their goddamn job, then. They get one job. You don't let them fucking knock that protein shake out of her fucking hand?
They're the worst night watchmen of all time, but, I mean, they're trying, at least.
Not trying hard enough.
But no, the ring is from even Jacob Smith's wife, who we don't have a name for, from the 1800s.
That's what I'm saying. The original wife, like you have their painting, their photo painting, whatever. She's wearing the same fucking ring.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And when Catherine is killed, the ring falls off of her to be found by the next person that moves, or the next woman that moves into the house. I thought.
And earlier in the film, she tried to take it off. She's like, "Oh, that's tight."
It's so tight. The ending seems to be like the hatred point for a lot of viewers that I've heard from so far. One of the things that is important, and you guys have both kind of mentioned it, is you have to be able to hear the whispers as the boat is sailing off into the sea. George, after killing Catherine and being temporarily released by the police, decides to take his dead cousin's boat. Yes, the dead gay cousin.
The only reason why we highlighted it is they highlighted it throughout the entire fucking movie. To me, it didn't matter if he was gay or not.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
He decides to take his boat out on the lake, and at the same time, Justine is woken from her coma and is telling her story to the police. Time's running out for George in the real world and the afterlife, and in a beautiful transition which ends the film, the sea turns into a lake of fire and envelops the ship as George descended into hell. There's even an inverted cross lighting the dark sky, which reminds us of a completely reverse imagery of Innes's painting that is featured throughout the film. Now, you can hear the voices of Ella and Catherine whispering, quote, "The gates of hell are only visible for those about to come into it. He who is evil is also the punishment of evil. Damned, they never win. The world of spirits is not heaven or hell. We stand between the two. Because of you, we are joined in spirit. Because of you, our powers grow from tiny drops to an endless sea." End quote. These are all allegorically connected to Swedenborg's philosophy, George Innes's artwork, and it's basically damn George to an eternity in hell. And that's the entire ending of the movie. And yes, Fulci did it. I understand.
Exact same thing. They walk into the painting, they're trapped in hell for eternity.
Right.
Same thing.
It's not completely original, but I thought the ending was well done.
It could be said that maybe Fulci was influenced by that work for that.
Very possible.
Very possible, because it's so fucking similar.
Catherine, on the other hand, is going to remain in the house along with Ella and the original owner's wife to help other women who are reluctantly brought to their final resting place under the skies of starting a new life. In the end, like you guys have mentioned, we see the ring again, which we thought was only Ella's after Eddie confirms it was his mother's. But this time it's in an old-fashioned photo, and the ring is being worn by the original owner's wife, Jacob Smith's wife, who was killed in a similar fashion in the early 1800s. This ring, which physically symbolizes two women comforting each other, has been passed down from one tortured woman to another for centuries, and will likely pass to another after the events of this film because it slips off Catherine's finger as she's being murdered. So who's going to find the ring next is kind of like that story. Dude, I know. I thought this film was brilliant, but it's one of those you have to dig into. It's not good for just a casual viewing. It's hard to just take in as a casual viewing. That's my final opinion on it. Colonel, let's rate this bitch. Thanks, heard and seen.
You get a slow burn, but it's a good slow burn. I really appreciated the first hour and 10 minutes of this film. I really did. I thought it was really good. The ending, like I said, just too art house for me. Been much happier if a plane of glass flew off the back of a flatbed truck and he got decapitated, and that's how he met his end. I mean, if we're going to rip everything else off, we might as well rip off The Omen while we're at it. For casual viewers, I kind of watch this as a casual viewer. It's like not normally my cup of tea. I was able to follow along after our discussion. It does kind of make me feel a little bit better about Catherine. She gets to sit in the afterlife with all of her girlfriends, eating Haagen-Dazs ice cream, having a good time until the next girl shows up and they got to try to protect her, but they're not going to because they fucking suck with their jobs. And that's okay. Life goes on. I don't think Netflix is the best platform because 99% of your audience watching this movie are going to be casual viewers. Overall, like I said, I had to give it a 6. I did enjoy it. And it was by far the best movie we're going to review in these next 2 weeks.
There are far worse things to watch out there. I absolutely disagree with you having to take an art lesson to understand or appreciate this movie. I disagree. I think art students and people that have degrees in this kind of thing that study the history of art will appreciate this quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not a requirement to get the gist of the story and have an effect on you. Take it from me. It's not bad. That ending, all I could see was a Fulci ending. I get it. It's symbolic. I dug the upside down cross imagery, the reverse. Got it. But having said that, it's still a Fulci ending, baby. I mean, they did it 81. I did enjoy this movie a lot. I really hated that guy, George. I hated him. And that's good. That's good filmmaking when you can...
You're supposed to.
You can tell a story and actually get somebody to turn on a fake fucking image. I'm going to give this movie 6.5.
I appreciate what you're trying to say about not needing an art degree or anything to appreciate the film. I see what you're saying. Here's the thing. They give little pieces of it in the film.
Just enough.
There's a part of me that when I got finished watching this movie, I was like, I need to know more about this Swedenborg guy. I need to know more about this George Ennis painter. I just wanted to know. And I think looking up a little bit of stuff about them added to why I like this movie. So that's why I say what I did earlier on about you're going to appreciate it more with a little more knowledge. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm saying when he said, well, I can't believe he fell for that mumbo jumbo stuff, that kind of drew the line right there as far as everything you're explaining. It's beautifully simple. Right there. You knew, okay, he's not a believer and he's walking in. I almost didn't know if it was going to be some kind of like cult kind of thing or skulls, stonecutters or some kind of shit like that. There was a lot of ways it could have gone, but I still think I'm not taking it away. If you got the time to go and look up these things and study these guys, but this movie will give you enough where you can get it.
I like having this kind of a discussion about it. I'm not going to give this a 10. Fuck you guys. This is not Dr. Sleep. Okay. It's not far behind that, but man, I'm giving this an 8.5 only because like 8 is fairly attainable in the horror realm of movies that we've been getting over the last few years. I've given a few 8s, not many, but a few. This one just artistically for me is just slightly above like The Invisible Man or something like that. I think The Invisible Man got an 8. And I thought The Invisible Man was artistically well done. This has a little bit more on top of that, and I enjoyed it. The performances alone are worth watching because there's not a bad performance in this fucking movie at all. From Cole, the kid who's coming into manhood, but he's babysitting the daughter, but then he looks at Amanda Seyfried's tits, at one point, to the teenagers that are in it, Natalia Dyer, Eddie, to Catherine and George, to the faculty. There's not a bad performance in the fucking film. And you'll recognize some of the other faces in this. Just a well-done movie, but not one of those popcorn eating movies. This is one that if you watch with somebody, have somebody there to talk about it afterwards. I mean, this is one of those that I was like, okay, I'm scrolling through Facebook like, okay, who's watched this? Who's watched this? Who wants to talk about this? Who wants to talk about this? Because I just wanted somebody to talk to about it. All right, so Things Heard and Seen. It's available on Netflix right now. Go watch it. Let us know what you think in the comments below and enjoy, but be ready.
Sign up for an art major class.
God damn it, no.
Well, Let's Go Camping is done. I'm going to go hop in my boat and get out of here. But before I do, let me tell you, we've got more stories and shit coming from around the campfire later this week from Death Curse Society. All right?
You're gonna die, Junior. You're gonna die. Eat this, asshole.
Hey, this is Eddie Furlong. You're watching Death Curse Society. Pet Cemetery 2, motherfuckers.
The Death Curse Society has just become an associate producer on the film.
Yes.
Bravo. Bravo. Death Curse Society, guys, is so awesome. I met the guys, all three of the guys, at Indianapolis last year for Horror Hound. And I met those dudes, and I gotta tell you, like, I hung out with them, we took pictures, I signed some stuff, they gave me a t-shirt. It was awesome. They are awesome guys. So super cool. I am so glad to have them on board this campaign and also on board the film. And now they are going to be IMDb credited as producers on this movie.
I was Crank's going to do this movie at least a fucking 9.
I was.
You're short. You're short, cocksucker. This is just besides that little part right there, though. This is just notes on that movie. There's a history lesson that goes along with this movie. If you didn't get that in the fucking movie. Sidebar: I have to say this. I made a joke last night about White Claw because somebody sang Beastie Boys, and they were like, they did Fight for Your Right to Party. I was like, the Beastie Boys didn't fight for your right to party to drink White Claw as they're walking off stage. So, fuck White Claw. Mike Nichols? Really? You're gonna make a 70s pull like that? Jesus Christ, man.
Wait a minute. Who's the guy that did your Blind Manor?
No, fuck you. No, don't bring him into this.
That's it.
No, don't bring him into this.
That's what I meant to say. Yeah, let me redo that.
So leaving it in.
Yeah, I'm leaving it in. Fuck you. You don't get to redo that.
I'm editing this one.
Live with your error.
Hey, Zigzag here for Death Curse Society. If you enjoyed that video, please go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That's how you get these things served up right in front of you every time. And we've got more for you. Check them out right there. Maybe figure out what the fuck's wrong with us. I don't know. It's all right there at Death Curse Society. Click it and see for yourself.